Welcome back to Spotlight by the Intelligence. I am AiirBear, and today I have with me Maclaine Drake. How you doing today, boss?
Another day in paradise. How about yourself?
Right, about the same. I just got off of a live stream, played a show yesterday. Things are looking up.
That sounds like a solid day so far, if I would say.
Yeah, not wrong at all. So I want to give my man a little intro here, right? For those of you guys listening, I ran into Maclaine while I was going to see my friend Versez play support for RL Grime at the Marquis. And the dude was just a very down to earth guy. Talked to me about like advice for like getting noticed by your influences. He does like work in an area that I'm not familiar with, throwing, if I understand correctly, doing like music events for the deaf. And so I was just really impressed by like the way that you give back to the community and the way you participate and like it seems like in a world of artists who are very self-centered, you seem like a guy who's more about like giving. And so I just that really caught my attention. So apologies if I'm being a little bit too sappy with it. I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself personally and tell us about what you do.
Um, yeah, my name's McLean. I don't know. I've been doing this line of work probably for 8 years now. Probably next 9 years, I guess next year as well. So, I mean, it's ranged from many different things, but probably what most people started to know me is like doing concerts that are geared for people who are disabled. One of the main areas is like deaf and hard of hearing, mainly because I am hard of hearing myself. So that's the main reason why I started doing things like that. But then it turned into more things and more different companies and projects and in this crazy life I have. So, nothing too crazy, just here and doing it as day by day, I guess you would say.
I sense a strong element of underplaying your achievements right here. If I could ask you to go into more detail, you talked about a lot of different businesses and like things that you're involved in. Let's rewind a little bit. How did you get involved in music in the first place?
I've always been a big fan of music. So I've had a hearing loss ever since I was 2 years old, and so it's always been a part of my life. But I've always loved music, and then from different influences in my life, whether it be my brother who suggested I did musical when I was in middle school, even though as a hearing person with a hearing loss, you never thought about that kind of stuff. That got me into the musical side of things and live performances, and I grown to love that. And then I was like, well, I don't know if I really want to be in, Broadway and all that stuff. Maybe not my cup of tea. And then that transitioned from someone suggesting I do acting and modeling. So then that got into that realm, which that then lead me to meeting people I know from the music world who, from then it turned into that. And then from there, befriending those people, we come to learn each other and they wanted to know my experiences with my hearing loss and like how I, do the show aspect. And I told them that these aren't really crazy for someone who does have a hearing loss, and they didn't really understand what I was pointing at. So it kind of spiraled into the idea we have, which was the concerts that were aimed for deaf and hard of hearing. And then from there, we then started, we got into the realm of like developing technology, so like make it more accessible because I was like, this isn't, there aren't really a lot of products out there. The list goes on, and I don't want to, there's specific. I mean, yeah, then we turn into like people with like high functioning autism because a lot of the things that we like for ADA for concerts really transitioned well into there. So then we did like field trips for kids who had high functioning autism, and then I've had deaf blind people, and so then that turned into that experience, which then turned into movie theaters needing my help because there wasn't anyone doing. And then it all circled back to films and films because films want to be more accessible to hard of hearing and deaf people, and me doing acting and modeling before I did any of that turned me being a consultant for a lot of different, whether it be production companies, individuals, scripts, or YouTubers. It just circled back, and now we're here. So yeah, I hope that if there's any other particular questions, but yeah, that's kind of gives you the rough overview of everything, I would say.
You sound like a man who's worn many hats. If I can be so bold as to ask this, what was your experience with music like being a hard of hearing person?
I mean, it's all subjective. Like my experiences, as opposed to someone else who has a different kind of hearing loss, because I have a very unique hearing loss, which is weird because a lot of people don't know that there's different types of hearing loss. They only think there's deaf, and then someone has can't hear that very well. But there really is a range of them. But with my experiences, because I have something called a reverse slope neurological sensory hearing loss, which means a lot of my low end frequencies are gone, but my high ends are not as much affected. So it's actually easier for me to hear people who talk in a higher pitch, typically women. That's why I like talking to girls and people in the music space or film world that are women, because I can understand and I don't have to say what a bunch, because it is very embarrassing to ask people to do that. With that kind of hearing loss, it made it hard for me to go to rock concerts, even though I love drums and I love rock and punk rock and stuff like that. I couldn't go to those shows because the places weren't accessible. So it's why I didn't go to a lot of those shows, even though I really loved that kind of music. But then one of my friends introduced me to the EDM side of things, and my first like rave was like Steve Aoki, and I was like, this is crazy because I don't have to wear my hearing aids while going to the shows. Because that's the thing, is like when you're not doing the things of what I do now. Now I know there's ADA and stuff that we could ask for. Before then, you just go, well, it's on me, and if I don't want to go, I don't want to spend $60 on a show. I'm not going to go do that. But going to an EDM show where I could take out my hearing aids and still have a moderately to really good time and understand what's going on and hear my friends and not worry about my hearing loss getting more affected. It made me enjoy EDM a lot more for that aspect. I obviously love EDM for other reasons, but it's that kind of gives you a difference of like show wise. Of I loved rock, but I couldn't go to rock shows because I was worried with how loud shows were becoming, and not knowing I had rights for myself and things I could do. That's why I didn't go. But now that I'm older, now I'm starting to go more back into rock and all that jazz. Still go to a lot of EDM, but yes, but that's the difference. Is I could go to certain genres, but I couldn't go to other ones without feeling like I was jeopardizing my health in a way. So
Interesting perspective to hear that, like like with your particular type of hearing loss, that certain genres are more better tolerated than other ones. That's I feel like a unique insight that people might not be familiar with, and lends itself well to my next question, which is like you said you're most well known for, you think, with your work in the making like hearing accessible concert experiences. How would you say the ones that you cater to that demographic different from like a regular EDM show or concert in general?
I mean, when I originally started it's always been the premise of I didn't want it to be known as like the guy who does those concerts, because that's the thing with disabilities, is everybody wants to put it into a box per se. And that's probably a lot of the reason why I didn't do a lot with the deaf culture growing up, because you have the deaf culture and people view it in whatever capacity that is, and then you have hearing people, and there are just two different worlds, as probably people would put it, and I just didn't like that. So when I first did shows, I was like, listen, I'm just a hard of hearing guy who grew up with a lot of hearing friends. I didn't grow up with the deaf culture. I just know how I would like to enjoy shows. And so originally we would like EQ the shows so you could feel more of the bass and feel this vibrations and stuff like that, which over time made me realize, well, that's a problem, because then my hearing friends who I really wanted to come to the show, wasn't just for deaf people. I couldn't go because it would be very dangerous for the ears, and I don't want people to become more hard of hearing and end up in my condition, even though there's nothing wrong with that. I just wanted accessibility and something that just allowed anyone to be able to go enjoy these things. So over time, we've incorporated different technologies, worked with different companies like Listen Technologies. They've worked with me ever since the first show I've done. They do pretty much anything ADA related to hard of hearing, whether it be like Wi-Fi systems or induction loops, which connect hearing aids directly to audio. They do different things for those that kind of solve those things. We worked with colorblind sunglasses and glasses for concerts as well, just because we wanted to make sure that was inclusive. So I try and tell people that it's not necessarily I'm like, hey, I'm a lot of people would say I'm changing the scope of what music should be enjoyed, but I think a lot of what I do is I just do what standardly should be done as someone who throws shows, and that's why I've naturally probably become more of a consultant, even though I still do a lot of the back end for like, I work with a lot with the Mutiny guys. I work with a lot of companies up north. I work with L&E, who threw like the shows that me and you went to. There's a lot of different companies I work with behind the scenes, but my intention was never to be like, I just want to be a promoter and doing these big shows. But a lot of people, because nobody was doing it, they just put me as like, well, you're the only guy doing it. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't mean that no one can't. It's just, so yeah, like we've incorporated technologies from like by the second or third show, we made vibrating platforms because like companies like Subpack really wanted to work with me, but in logistically wise, you couldn't really just get 20 Subpacks and hook them up to people. It's just because people want to drink, people want to go and hang around, people, these things get lost and those things are expensive. And to put the burden on me to keep replacing it or fix them, or also it's Bluetooth, which means you'll die. I learned how to weld, so then that way I can learn how to make vibrating platforms. So then that way we could just provide it all show and do it on a larger scale per se. We started investing in like LED lights that allow people to like go up and touch them, because a lot of people with high functioning autism, they just want to be able to embrace and touch and be able to do what they want to. And to tell that to someone during a live show, to not go up to an LED wall, even though you shouldn't, it's hard, and don't want to feel like you just don't know where they're coming from. They're trying to experience the show in their way. So yeah, we incorporated into a lot of partnerships and a lot of different ways into how to incorporate the live music aspect into different sensories, or how people would enjoy the show from different perspectives, I would say. But that's probably how I would break it down, per se.
No,
A lot of words.
I like the breakdown, and especially the explanation of, like, you said something that stuck out to me where you didn't want to be put in a box, right? Like, you describe a disability and immediately, like, the average person returns with some kind of like, maybe weird pity perhaps. And it's like, we don't want to do anything to further separate the groups, right? So what I like about the pioneering that you're doing in the industry is not furthering the divide between the two demographic groups, but trying to bring them together by just making sure that, like, these communities can access the same level of entertainment that the hearing group can, as you put it.
Yeah, it's always been about that. I don't know. I think when you look at it from a general aspect, it's more of a, I think people with disabilities, and I think anybody with a disability doesn't want to feel more like they're not involved. And so and that's always been the dream of like, if it were me, and I've always been from this stance of, if say the biggest, there's tons of promoters, but say like one of the largest promoters in the world, they go, we want to do this for all shows. Hey, listen, I'll step out of business tomorrow. I don't need to do any of this. It's more of, I can't enjoy the shows. I know there's friends of mine who can't enjoy the shows, and they look to me to like solve these problems because they're not listening, and they're a minority. And so, and often with a lot of minority, they have different issues and this is just an issue of theirs, is things that are like, they want to go and consume this because they love metal just as much as we do. They just can't understand it, whether they need ASL or they need to be able to feel the bass, or they want to be able to enjoy it from a certain aspect, say from like the wheelchair perspective. They just want to be able to see what's going on, but they can't because there's no areas. It's all about, they don't want to go up to someone and make their burden someone else, and then being told, well, that's just too complicated, and then, or that they have to figure it out. And so that's why a lot of people just overlook it. And so I'm just there to try and solve it, more or less, if that makes sense.
So when people bring you on to do consulting for these kind of events, what does that typically look like from your end? Like, say I wanted to hire you to make my event more disability friendly. What exactly would you recommend to me?
It depends. It depends on, again, what community they're trying to incorporate in the shows. Because again, everyone looks at it from the deaf and hard of hearing aspect. I go, okay, well, is it someone who's completely deaf, who native tongue is ASL, or is it someone who's hard of hearing, who just is going with a bunch of hearing friends, but they have some concerns about the audio not being clear. Those are two different aspects, and so I just tell people, typically it's from a hard of hearing aspect. Typically from a hard of hearing aspect, they just want to be able to get a direct line of audio, and there's things to solve that. And so I'm usually the one that, hey, here's all your options. Here's what you can provide them. This is probably the simplest for someone with hearing aids. This is what that all involves. We walk through the whole venue, figure out, hey, do you want to do the whole venue? So then that way for future shows, you don't have to ever do this again. Or is this just a temporary solution and you need someone to kind of oversee it? Like, for example, with like Fear Factory or like the Mutiny shows that I do a lot of, or L&E, L&E that we used to do, they used to do a lot of temporary shows. So I would go and I usually manually set up and tear down all the ADA that they want for the show for like hard of hearing or deaf people. If it's more of a permanent installation, whether they want me to do it or they have someone I trust to do it, depending on like what I'm busy with and stuff, I can give them a direct line of like, this is who I'd recommend, and they go, okay, cool, to like set up. Because with permanent installations, it's just more involved, more labor and stuff like that. Just depends, but it's getting better and better as technology gets better and better. Or say you want, from like a wheelchair's perspective, some people come to me for like ramps, like, hey, how do we get a ramp in here? How do we make a wheelchair's user experience easier? And it's like, oh, okay, well, let's, you have to look at everything from a logistics standpoint, because again, if it's temporary, it's harder because typically temporary means that it's just going to be more expensive because you're going to have to do it every show. If you have a permanent place, it's going to be easier because you put it once. That pretty much covers you for the next 5 to 10 years, unless you want to upgrade your systems. And pretty much anyone with a hearing loss now you've taken care of for the next 5 to 10 years, and you don't have to deal with not knowing how to take care of them. Because, the sad part about it, and I always tell people, like, look, it's not even about money for me, but if you really want to get down to brass knuckles about it, there are people in our community who will take lawsuits to these companies because they're not taking care of them, and those are, those can, I think they range from like $20,000 to like $50,000 last time I checked, and you can slap multiple on those until people decide to get it handled, and that's per venue. It's not a, so it's like, listen, do you really want to be bothered with someone like that? It's most of our community would never do that, but there are people who do, and it's one way to achieve it, but I don't think that's the way to do it. I think it's more of a symbiotic and working together, but teach their own. So yeah.
Sure, it's practical. It is helping. It's offering quality of life improvements, while additionally kind of covering your ass in the sense of like heading off future problems by anybody who feels like they weren't properly catered to.
Exactly.
So if I can summarize some of the stuff you just said, sort of for my own breakdown, right? When you do consulting, you ask them what it is that who they're trying to make it accessible to, and then logistically from there, are you considering a permanent installation, or do we need to contract out to companies? Then at that point, you throw them referrals to the people who can do the job. I'm just trying to understand it better.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty much a simple breakdown of it all. It again, every project I take on is just different in every aspect, but that's probably the general gist of what most people would come to me for. Yes, that's correct.
Where do you see the future of this kind of work headed?
No, that's a very hard, obviously, question. I would say, I think our society right now is pushing for a lot of like their voices to be heard, whether it's good or bad. Like a lot of films have been incorporating more of the hearing loss stuff. Is it the best way to go about it? No, because I think there's, I hate being asked this question because it's always hard. I think I will always probably be like in this position for a while, because I think for a lot of the social change that occurs in our society is all when like a film does really well at an Oscar, or a very popular deaf individual rise to fame. And I don't think it's a very constant conversation, and I think it's just because our society has a lot of things we're trying to achieve, and so it's going to take a while for us to really tackle a lot of things, because again, disability in general, me trying to help all the disabilities is not really what most companies do in the general sense. Like, for example, Listen Tech, they typically do this is just for hard of hearing and deaf people, or hard of hearing or hearing loss in general. They don't do things typically in people who have high functioning autism. That doesn't mean that they're a bad company. It's just they're just trying to solve that one issue. So all the companies that work with me, I try and solve, hey, listen, if there's a disability maybe I don't know, I'm going to figure out the answer and do all the hard work to do it. Because for me, I just would rather fix it all. It's a lot of work to take on, but a lot of there's just not anyone kind of mending that kind of conversation, I would say. But again, it's just such a huge ask for like one individual or for a company to do, because most companies are very stagnant. So I would say, in terms of what I do, I think I'll always be asked in terms of for help and things that I know and my expertise and the companies I work with, because I just constantly like doing research in that. Um, but I do hope over time, though I think it will take a while, that companies just start looking more into this stuff, because it is technically the law. I mean, here in America, it's technically the law, and that's typically where I do most of my work. Um, but it all comes down to money and priorities, and so if who knows? I hope for the best, but I'm also very realistic of I know I will always be asked for help, because it's a very daunting task for anyone to take on. From a company aspect, because I work a lot with deaf, obviously, and one of the things they always complain about is, well, why aren't a lot more places? Because not even from a concert perspective, grocery stores and city halls, things like that, a lot of those places aren't accessible to them as well. And so their frustration isn't just music in general; it's just that all around. And so they always express their frustrations, and I tell them, listen, just as much as it's on hearing people to maybe look into this, it's also the same issue that hard of hearing and deaf individuals need to use their voice and go to the businesses that they want to give business to, but they're not providing the service, and consistently let them know of like, I want to be able to enjoy these things, but you're not providing it. Say for example, a concert. I want to go to all these concerts that this one promoter puts on, but I can't enjoy it because I don't have these certain things. If you're not expressing that, then it is. But again, it goes back to my initial thing: is most people with disabilities don't want to make their disability more known or make it more of a burden on anyone else, even though they have things to protect them to do that thing, and it is their right, and they are in the right to do it. Just nobody wants to be that person, and I understand, because I used to be the same way. So that's why I try and be the middle guy. But it will be a while, because concerts are a luxury, and all the other things that are necessities in life aren't accessible either. So it's why I venture out from the music world into other projects like Mr. Beast. I've worked with him. I've worked with Skull Candy. I've worked with, obviously, movie theaters. Those are all outside the music world, but that's just because there's just been such a ask. So, but I love it. I mean, it keeps me always busy and something new every day. So. Yeah.
Sure. It sounds like there's a demand for this kind of work in every industry, which I feel like you've got a very unique skill set, in the sense that it's so widely applicable because of the prevalent social issue as you described it. I wanted to say specifically, like, it sounds to me like your role is almost being the nexus point between all of these companies that cater to niche disabilities, and you kind of collate the whole thing and turn it into a user friendly experience en masse.
Right.
But what I wanted to ask specifically was,
Sure.
oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought.
You're totally
Oh goodness gracious. When you think about like what the pinnacle experience would be for you, like if you were to attend an event that you felt like had all of their ducks in a row, everything done right, what would they have? Is it like literally every single one of these technologies, or is that not within, like logistic, practical realisticness?
The best segment. I mean, like, that's just yeah. I mean, it's a hard thing to really answer, because again, all the disabilities and also all the accommodations that are required for shows, there's always something you don't know. Like when I first started doing shows, I only knew hearing loss, and then people who were deaf and blind came to me and they're like, "Yo," and I'm like, I didn't think I was being. Sure, I'll take it on, but I don't know. Like, and that's always been my approach of like, if I don't know, I'll say it straight up, I don't know, but I'll find out the answer and I'll get all those answers because it's just the right thing to do. So I will never claim to know what is the standard for every single disability and someone who wants to go to a show. And even for like when we did things for like high functioning autistic children, the principal of the school came up to me and they're like, "Do you have things that you could do for adults?" I'm like, "I don't even know what you would like me to do." It's like, well, the main concern is they have caregivers, typically the people who identify in this region, and concert when they want to go to concert, that means they have to buy 2 tickets, even if the caregiver is not interested in the music. The promoter doesn't care, and or they just don't. They were not going to provide them a free ticket. I'm like, I wouldn't know that. So, okay, in terms of a best show, let's think about this.
Call it
You know,
like
I
best realistic show, if you
yeah,
would.
I mean, I think it's, I think always the attempt to do something is always grand. For example, like, hey, you have an interpreter because the artist has vocals and all that stuff. Great, that's great to have for a show if that is what kind of show it is. Because there are EDM shows that there really are no lyrics, and it's like doesn't really matter. But like say for a band, we'll just say it's a band because that'll make it easy to figure this out. So for a band, probably interpreter. So then the deaf who are like native speakers to ASL or people who have a lot of deaf friends and are going with a bunch of deaf friends, they can do that. You could use an induction loop or something that just came out. It's an Auracast, which is a Bluetooth kind of thing now that's been introduced. You could do something like that for people who have hearing aids or cochlear implants to get like a direct line of audio. So then that way, because a lot of people don't realize with hearing aids, it only hears pretty much 6 feet in front of you, and then after that, it gets distorted. So if you're in the very back, your hearing aids really can't do a lot. It's really just bringing in a lot of noise. It doesn't make any clear noise or clear sound per se. So things like that make it to where your hearing aids just get a direct line of audio wherever you are in the venue. So if you have something like that, I've been looking more and more into like sensory rooms for people who are, who need a quiet spot. I saw Coldplay introducing a lot of that, and that's been really cool. So a lot of the projects I'm working on, we're looking to integrate that into it. Wheelchairs, obviously ramps, viewing areas, that obviously is very, very nice for them, and they very much appreciate those kind of things. I mean, I'm just trying to think of like deaf blind people. I mean, with the vibrating platforms we use, they love that. So I mean, I would just make more of those. I mean, because that's fun. I think it's always. I mean, that's probably like general gist. Again, with all the disabilities, I typically colorblind glasses, but that's again it just gets into niche disabilities. Yeah, I we'll just put that as a blanket statement, but I mean, obviously, there's other disabilities that have different ADA stuff that I know I've worked with in the past. It's just a matter of if you're trying to get everybody with a disability there, I think always, it's like when I did shows, it's always the attempt that matters. It's not, hey, is everything perfect to a T? Like when I first did shows, and I tell people, it's like, it's you caring about the issue, and it may not be perfect, but like they don't get any recognition in this realm with like people who are disabled. They don't get people who go, hey, we want you to come out to a show and work with us to try and figure out how we can figure out a simple solution. We don't have all the money in the world. We just want you to come out. And if there's a way we could do it logistically, let's have a conversation. And most deaf people would be like, yeah, that's great. Like nobody does this. Same thing with people with high functioning autism. Hey, we want you to be able to come to our shows. We're thinking this will work. Will it work? And they come out and test it. They'll tell you, hey, it does or does not work. And that, for most businesses, that's what you want to know. You just want to know what you're doing actually impacts. You don't want to spend thousands of dollars and not have anyone show up or not have that bond with the community. And I think a lot of it comes down to you actually care, you actually are working with them, and you actually are listening to if they actually have feedback. And I think that's with any show in particular, that's all that matters is you're attempting, you have a good line of a dialogue between the two, between you and them, and you own up if it's not perfect, and you figure out how you can do it, and they'll recognize it, and 90% of them will be happy with that, so
That
that
was a
is.
lovely breakdown. I was gonna say, forgive my vague, general question.
You're
It's
totally
like it
fine.
was asked with intent, right? Because like my perspective is this, right? Like imagine you are attempting to put on a show. You don't have a
Mhm.
massive budget. You are an up
Mhm.
and coming event thrower, and you are
Right.
looking to make the attempt as you so described. It's like
Mhm.
you seem to describe like an ever growing list of accommodations, niche
Mhm.
disabilities, and other things that like um could help improve the overall experience for maybe
Mhm.
like, like 0.1% of the population. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's like you
Mhm.
almost kind of have to like prioritize in that case, like
Right.
how many people are going to benefit from this particular quality of life improvement, and then
Exactly.
utilize the ones that make it feasible. If I can wheel around here for a second, the
Sure.
the other thing that really kind of like locked me in on this interview and made me excited to talk was when you and I had a one-on-one about like talking to artists that are better established than you as you're
Mhm.
early on in your artist career. So apologies for the about face right here now. It's like I had a conversation with you and you said to me, who's your influence? And then I said, Eliminate. And you're like, okay, so make a track for Eliminate and send it off to him. And I guess where I'm coming from with this question is right is like typically on this show I'm interviewing other artists and trying to figure out what exactly they did that worked out for them that could
Mhm.
help somebody else to do the same thing. And
Mhm.
I liked that you had like a specific recommendation for me that was like something I hadn't heard. It wasn't general, it wasn't basic, it wasn't cliche. How did you
Mhm.
come how did you come upon this knowledge, and what makes you confident it works like that?
Well, I did artist management for a little bit. I used to manage, I mean, we still work on and off, but he wanted to do hip hop, and I'm not a hip hop guy. I don't know hip hop as well as a lot of my other friends. Um, he was a rapper, and when I first started doing concerts, he helped me out with a lot of concert stuff. And anyone that helps me out early on, even still today, if they ever hit me up, I go, yeah, listen, whatever you want. Like, I'll put it lightly. I appreciate everyone who puts me in the spotlight of like, hey, you do all this great stuff and you're this great dude. But there's a lot of people who help me, gave their time or their resources, their knowledge, and allowed me to be what I know and in this path I do have. And so I try and give as much back to those people. And he was one of the people. He used to go by Radius, then he went to Atari because he had to change his name, which he did a lot of his artist projects as Atari, and then he is now formally he's known as Peyton. Um, but he came to me when I was stopped doing shows because I was like, I just want to take a little break. I'm investing so much money into shows because I was the one putting up all the money for the lot of concerts I was doing. And so he came to me and was like, I really know I'm a talented rapper. I'm like, okay. And he's like, I just need someone to like be able to send this stuff off. And I'm like, I'm not no manager. I just threw shows, man. I just threw shows for deaf people, and now people are butting me as I know, which is just fair. I understand why people, think I have some influence because when you work with artists, yeah, you get to know them a little bit, but whatever. He was like, "Can you help me out?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know a couple artists. You give me some tracks that you think would work really well for them as far as like top lines and stuff, and we'll just send it off. Like, why not? Like, you helped me out and you believed in my dream and it worked out. Why would I not do the same for you?" And so we sent it out to an artist I know, and his name was Slimes, and then we sent it off to a bunch of other people, like Riot 10 knew his team. I knew, oh man, we've worked with Bear Grylls now. Anyway, we worked with a bunch of artists, and so we sent it off originally like one or two artists, and they came back and they're like, "Oh yeah, we really love this guy. Vocally, we really love this." So originally he didn't have anything. I was like, hey, this is his track. And they're like, great, get us something. And so Payne got something the next week and we got it over to him. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is dope. And you get it done really fast. And anyway, the whole thing's history because now, we worked with Bear Grylls, Slimes, Riot 10. We did like 6 tracks with them. We did things with Dion Timmer. We've done things with oh man, I'd have to look at his discography. We've worked with so many artists. It's millions and millions of streams. Either way, we worked with Dimmock and Disciple and Oh man, anyway, it's been a while since with that. Either way, we started working with a lot of people from a vocalist aspect, and it worked really well. And because he didn't have a manager at the time, he just looked at me. He's like, "I need to tell him I have a manager, and you're the only guy I trust because you believed in this whole thing." And I'm like, "Oh, dude, of course, I don't need any money unless you're making hand over fist. Why would I need money?" And so I ended up becoming his manager and also his TM because he needed someone who went when he went out of state, and so I would travel with him as well. And so that's why I know, like, I think ultimately, trying things in like specifically going like, listen, I draw a lot of inspiration from you. I really want to work with you, or I really want to, get insight or whatever. This is something I made specifically for you. Because I think when people make songs, like artist perspective, they go, hey, I'm making this track. Okay, now I'm going to send it to all the artists. If it's not like specific for someone, like say like we sure eliminate for example, say this is not specifically for him, it's for anyone who would listen to it. It's like, I get what you're trying to do, and maybe that would work. But also, if you go to them and be like, listen, I really thought you would dig this track, I made it for these specific reasons, I drew from this inspiration of a song or this sound that you used to make or whatever, like you actually make it personal to someone or an artist or their team, it gives it more of an umph of like, this guy actually cares about what I put my heart and soul into, because people realize genuine, actual people. When you're not genuine and you're just trying to find someone who can just put you on a platform and you really don't really know who they are, you just know they have a lot of followers or that they just have some influence. A lot of people get rubbed the wrong way because that is a lot of how it is behind the scenes. Is you just worry that the people you meet, if they're genuine connections. Now, a lot of the artists I know, like I genuinely love them as people, and we're just genuine friends, and a lot of people don't realize that we're like that I know a lot of people, but that's because it doesn't matter. Like me knowing, for example, like one of my closest friends, Dion Timmer, me and him are like very close friends, and we've been friends for 5 years, and I love him. Like me and him, we get along like two peas in a pod. And it's nothing other than I don't listen to any of his music. I don't know anything about him. It's just I genuinely like him as a person, and I like, he like loves Pokemon. I'm a freaking nerd through the roof, and he's a big knowledgeable dude on PC stuff and everything. And I game all the time, and many different things. And having those genuine connections with people slowly over time, it builds into something. And so that's why, from an artist perspective, if you're trying to make songs or you want someone to recognize it and you really care about someone's like opinion, or you want them to work with you or whatever, making it actually a genuine, I really look up to you and I really love your feedback. It may not work on the first one, but again, it makes the actual thought process and how you should go about the industry more in the line of what you should do. You shouldn't go about it like anyone who could help me get to the next spot. It's like, yeah, okay, everyone would agree with you in that thought process. But if that's how you're going to all these networking kind of things, or you're going up to artists, like, please listen to my track. Like, do you know anything about me? No. Okay, well, it just makes it so like you just only care because they're in their position they're in, and that's understandable. But like, everybody and their mom is doing the same thing as that is, and that doesn't get you any cred behind stage. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants someone who just is there because of, I care about the fame and all that stuff. It's okay that you want that, but it's, a lot of us are friends behind stage, and we like people who are actually themselves and just want to be there because they love the environment per se. So that's where a lot of it stems from, and there's all the things that go into it, but I'm very, very stern on it. It's just like, we can tell if you're not being authentic with yourself and being genuine with what you're saying. And it's really heartbreaking because you want to be able to tell people that, but at the same time, it's hard. So yeah.
Right. No, I always appreciate the authentic approach, because I feel like it's like you said, coming from the industry, you have to wonder in the back of your mind, is this person actually interested in me, or are they using my head as a stepping stone? Like, do
Right.
they see me as a tool? And so
Right.
like, I really like the story you shared about Peyton, because it sounds like not even like a quid pro quo, like mutual back scratching, but a situation of like, you had a friend, he helped you out with something you did, he asked for help, you returned the
Hmm.
favor, and it all seemed very organic, not
Hmm.
forced, and nobody like going out of their way to do like this excessive clout chasing or like, the social media rat
Yeah.
race and whatnot. So
Right.
like, I guess my spin-off question would be from here is like, how, assuming you're coming from a place of being brand new on the scene, not
Hmm.
having these connections, how would you recommend nurturing these connections with other people?
I mean, obviously you got to start with, like obviously build whatever brand. You got to know what you are trying to be. Obviously it changes over time, but you want to, the music industry in general, you have to look at any project as it's a business. And so if you don't know what business you are, you don't know what your business represents, you don't know what you represent, and you're just kind of floating around, you know, we can't make that for you. Draw inspiration from whatever you really passionately love. Like the reason why I'm in my position I am is because I have a hearing loss. Like that's just straight up what it is. And people are like, "Oh, I didn't know you had hearing loss." Like I know, but that's because I don't need to parade it around. But it is why I do a lot of work in that area. It's the same thing with music. Listen, why are you getting into this? What is, even like um, I mean, there's a lot of artists that if you listen to their whole backstory of like why they started doing music, it's like, oh, I had a bad addiction or I had this really tough time in life, and so that's where a lot of my songs, or why I make these type of songs, or why I make these kind of whatever, or why I use these vocals and stuff like that. So you definitely want to make sure you know really what your business is, who you are, what you are trying to sell, or what you're trying to put on, as that, because it will matter when you go to labels of like when you pitch yourself per se. It's like, oh, this agent, well, why should I care? Well, here's a breakdown of my whole business and my numbers and all this stuff. You just want to know that from the general state. Now, in terms of like networking, it obviously takes time. Again, it's not like something that you just jump right into. Like me knowing all the people I know, it wasn't because I just, hey, I'm deaf, and everyone's like, oh yeah, let's work with you. Like when I first started doing shows, I mean, we put $50,000 into shows that I put in personally. I put $50,000 into some shows to book acts and stuff like that, which is how I got to know some of the artists I know. But now, since then, obviously, I just go and hang out with them because I just like seeing them again, and I like seeing my friends and doing stuff like that. You'll have to do things that put you in a position where, if you're starting out your music career, for example, you have to constantly put out music. Obviously, you got to constantly, put your best step forward in terms of that. But you also have to do things that, taking example from what I did, I put up a lot of the things on the line, like my money and things like that, to do the things that I believe in, and respect a lot of people who know me from the music industry. Respect that. They'll respect someone who just, listen, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. It's very great for networking per se, because when people talk to me about music, well, why did you get started in music? Oh, I do stuff for the deaf and hard of hearing. Even though it's so hard with what I do and all the consulting and how much work has gone into what I do now, like the amount of money I've lost, the amount of just different things that happen at shows. I mean, I always tell people there's a show where we brought out Ghastly, and he broke a champagne bottle and it spilled all over the CDJs while he was performing. And obviously that day I was just ticked off. You're like, dude, that's crazy. But now that all is said and gone, it's a great story to tell people. And people are like, oh, you've been through it. I'm like, oh yeah, I know what happens behind the stage and all that stuff. So like working with other people, they know that I know what I'm talking about, because there's people, and you probably experience it too, is there's artists who, oh, I work with so and so, or I'm a ghost producer for so and so, and then you ask them just very basic questions, or you just talk to them a little bit, and you're like, "Are you just lying to me? I don't. You don't want to lie. Don't lie about where you stand. Again, be authentic with who you are, because again, you'll find your group. You're not going to be friends with everybody. If you're starting out, obviously, yeah, some music. You want to take very daring risk on your project. Don't be afraid to put whether it's money or resources or a lot of time into a certain project that you believe in 100%. Obviously, get feedback from people, and put that out there. And you'll find people who really respect what you do. Because again, a lot of the artists that you love today, they took very big risks to get where they are. And a lot of people don't really realize that when you do the same thing, they will see that and they go, uh, I don't know what you would say in this situation, but I acknowledge that. They will acknowledge that because they're like, you get it. Like you get putting things on the line. If you've never put anything on the line and you're just doing it because you just love it, and there's no other reason, you can have the love for it, but if you want to get to like the big artists, you have to constantly put things, in my opinion, on the line to show the vulnerability of like, I'm putting a lot. And in terms of other things you can do, obviously going to network is totally great. Don't be afraid to ask for help. A lot of people, like when they talk to me, they do not. A lot of people have known me for years, and I'm like, hey, how's your music career going? And then 3 years after knowing me, they're like, I would really love your insight on these things. I'm like, you could have asked me this 3 years ago. Like, I don't know why I wait. Like, I think a lot of people are scared to ask for help because they don't want to be that person. It's okay to ask for help. Everyone's asked for help. Everyone's asked for resources and all that. You're not going to be able to do the whole project alone. So find people to be on your team who can help you do whatever you're trying to do. A lot of artists go, hey, they hit you up for like labels. I'm like, yeah, I'm not submitting to labels. Why would I not? I'll listen to your track to, if I believe that's going to be good, because obviously these are my connections, but I want you to succeed, kind of thing. So people asking for help is very, in my opinion, shows a very certain level of respect in terms of like, what you don't know and you want help in that area. And so you go and ask the person that you know for help. And sometimes they can't give you exactly what you want, but they'll point you in the right direction. So don't be afraid to ask for help. I don't know. There's so many things you can do. I think it's just, it depends on where you're at in your artist career and really what you have all planned. Because I think when people say they want to be an artist, sometimes they don't even have a track ready, or they don't even know how to make music yet, which is totally understandable. You should learn Ableton then, or you should learn FL and all that stuff. Become really knowledgeable at it. And then we can have that conversation. Because I can't do anything without what are you trying to make happen. Oh, I want to be a DJ. Okay, you want to be a DJ. That's totally fine. It'll be harder, but then you just go to, there's so many, there's just so many different realms of it. So I just keep yappering. So you just, whatever's the next question. But yeah, that's the general gist of it all, I would say.
No, you did great, honestly, with that. You cast such a wide net of different answers, which I think is important, right? Because it's like you said, you may be at a different place in your pathway, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, obviously the logical step is to pick up a DAW if you want to be an artist and you have yet to actually produce something, right? And so like, right. And with, like, I think asking for help and like, approaching these encounters with humility and like maybe respect for people who have like been doing this kind of work is important, because they can identify gaps. It's like you said, you don't know what you don't know, or at least right. That's how I interpret it, right? It's like, sometimes people ask me what I want to learn and I'm like, what should I be learning? What should I be asking questions about?
Yeah, some people, they like, I want to be in the music world. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, well, maybe a DJ. I'm like, do you want to be a DJ? This is kind of what comes with the territory. Like, I always tell from the perspective of like, with the bigger artists I know, it's like there's a lot of things that come with like the fame. Constantly touring is very draining. Fans can be a lot sometimes depending on how big you get. Not to mention, like, say you have like a, you're worried about drinking and drugs and all that stuff. That's very, very easy accessible when you're an artist. Now, say you want to be a manager. Hey, guess what? You don't have to go on tour sometimes. If you want to be a certain type of manager, you be the office manager and just handle all the paperwork for someone. Guess what? There's artists that need it all the time, and that's a lot easier typically to get into than an artist. Because a manager, you don't have to deal with the constant. Again, being an artist is a business. Are you prepared to handle a business, or you handle it not like, because they give you a paycheck and it's on you. Like, that's your paycheck for the whole year. If you go out and blow it all your money, SOL kind of thing. It's not a normal job kind of thing. And I don't think a lot of people are ready for that. Or you want to be a TM. TM obviously is tour managing. Hey, you want to go on tour with a guy, you don't have to deal with the spotlight ever. There are some people who just, with dealing with their social anxiety, I don't want to deal with that. I just want to be a tour manager. I know so many tour managers, they make a great living doing that. Just having that conversation with someone and being realistic about it, it's like, yeah, hey, listen, you really want to be an artist, or do you want to just be in the music space doing sound or LED wall, or own a venue or whatever? there's so many different things. I think just people just look at it from, well, I just want to be an artist because I love music world. I'm like, there's more things to music world, and you can make a living doing it. It's just a matter of just make sure you want to dedicate the next 10, 15, sometimes 20 years of your life if this is really, really what you want to do. Because you don't want to learn that halfway down the line and you're like, I actually just wanted to do this the whole time. I'm like, you could have just been up front. No one's going to judge you if you want to be a sound guy. I have a lot of respect for sound guys. I can't do it because I'm hard of hearing myself. So I love sound guys. So there's just, just be realistic with it. And again, that's probably the best advice for that, for sure.
Sure. Dialing in your niche, I feel like would save you so much wasted time. So I feel like I really love the perspective of I want to be part of the music world, without the understanding that that's like a never ending onion of subgroups, different things that each have their own like 5 to 10 career path, a 5 to 10 year career path involved. So
Right.
like, yeah. So definitely like my takeaway from that is like really zero in on what it is specifically in the music realm you think you're cut out for, test it out, make sure you actually are cut out for it, and then either proceed forward or like go with plan B, C, D, E, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
to go through by process of elimination and find out like what in the music world is right for you. Anyways, I feel like I'm doing a little yammering here. There were a couple more key questions I had for you. So if
No
I could
worries.
flash back to that artist management arrangement, I'm curious to know if that was just a one-off helping a friend, or if you found yourself becoming more of an artist manager after that introductory period to it.
There's a lot of people that approached me about doing it, and I was open to the idea originally, but I realized I didn't want. The only reason why I did Peyton is because he was a very close friend, and I felt like I owed it to him at the end of the day. I think a lot of, again, I am very much, I love doing project by project and like having multiple things going on. I enjoyed it, but I don't know if it would have been it takes you have to find the right artist for it, per se. You have to find the right talent, and you have to believe in the project. And I believed in him, and that's why it went really well. With a lot of people who came to me with like dubstep projects and stuff like that, it was just hard for me to get my believing behind it, because there's just, as much as I love the scene, there's just so much like dubstep projects and stuff like that, which I respect, but it's hard for me to be like, I'm in love with it because I know all the dubstep acts. So there would be a certain type of act to maybe get back into it. There have been people who approached me about it, and they're great people, and I love them to death. It just didn't make sense, and I was like, no, I don't. It wasn't for me. So, no. There was a couple like trials with some people, but I was like, yeah, I just want to focus on Peyton. And then after that, I was like, I did a lot of this stuff behind scenes, like people. I do a lot of investing for festivals and shows like that now, and a lot of logistical stuff, outsourcing of stuff for shows as well. So I was like, I just prefer being a guy that's not tied to that right now. So it's kind of a break for now, but who knows? There might be some dabbling in the future. It just depends. But
Could
right
be
now,
persuaded.
it could be swayed for sure.
It sounds like a very real example of you taking your own advice in terms of dialing in your niche, because you talked about like focusing in on like specific elements of what it is I want to do in this industry. So it's like you took the plunge being doing artist management, found out that was maybe more of a special case scenario rather than like your brand, so to speak.
Right. I would agree with that.
If I could wheel around here a little bit, I guess I'm going to ask kind of like a double-edged question right here, right? So we live in the internet age right now. So much takes place online. It's like the importance of it cannot be overstated, but to be obsessed with it is to be arrogant and vain and cloud obsessed. You know what I mean? So we have to manage this thing of using the internet to our advantage without like becoming arrogant on behalf of like our internet presence. And so I guess what I would say to that effect is how do you utilize the internet to promote your own projects? And likewise, the reverse of that, how would you recommend to other artists to use the internet to promote their own projects?
That's a good question. A lot of why I stopped doing shows in particular is obviously the hardest thing about throwing shows in general is utilizing and getting people to come to shows. It's not necessarily it's impossible. It's just you have to spend some money to get some people there. You have to build a community. and it just became more than it was, and for other reasons as well. I would say um, that's why I do a lot of partnerships with projects, because that way I can select it and go, listen, I will tap into your fan base and do what I like to do for shows. Um, that way I can choose, because being a promoter is hard, and I think any promoter right now can tell you that. And I have a lot of respect for them. I know what they go through on a daily basis because I work with a lot of them. But I mean, like when I first started doing shows, I would do flyering, obviously, and stuff like that. So it's very interesting. That's still a thing now. But I mean, things like TikTok do very well for platforms. I mean, everyone says that. It's very, very good. It's a pretty good algorithm in terms of you make good content, you'll do really good. You have a good idea. It usually does pretty good on platforms like that. YouTube Shorts have done very well for some people I know. Reels on Instagram do very well. I think short form content has definitely been the big explosive in the last 2, maybe 3 years, where it's no longer 10-minute videos. It's no longer even 3-minute videos. It's 30 seconds and less, and you have to capture the viewers in less than 3 seconds, which people who can capitalize on that stuff, it really works well. I also think it's just a matter of, in terms of like, if you're an artist, I think a lot of people like to recreate what's already been done, which is totally fine. But then also, then the same conversation of, well, why is mine not getting noticed? Like, A, because it's probably not as good, which is typically it's never as good as the original, unless you're making such a banger track, then maybe. And you're recreating a video that's already been done, so you're just recycling the same content rather than putting your own spin on things. So I think you got to come from, and that's why it's a business at the end of the day. You have to be a creative genius. Just with music, you will have to be with videos, unless you have a media person. Is you have to come up with ideas where if you like something, you take that idea, but you also twist it to be your own. Not in terms of like a song per se, but in terms of, hey, it's funny in this way. It takes like what I've seen and made it funnier, or made it more serious, or made it like cool aesthetically, or the way it was shot, and things like that. If you always think like that, I think that will obviously give you an edge, because I think everyone is doing the same type of content in terms of, here's a track I made, and then they have showing how the track's made, and I'm like, okay, here's the thing, like people have done that, and that's fine, but how are you making it unique to yourself? Again, finding your brand is. You got to find what you like and make it unique to you. And I think that's the biggest thing is if you can't do that, your content's always going to have a hard time finding the right audience, because they're going to just call you, oh, you're a copycat of this person, or you're just trying to recreate this person. And, and you won't find a fan base that just likes you for you, or you just won't find a big one. So I think that's a big thing. And I also think I noticed with several companies is not even online anymore. People who make like very limited drops in terms of like merch. Say you are at a point with merch, you make very limited drops. So then you make it unique. So then only a certain amount of your fan base can get it. So then you're always selling out, which is great. Which is great for obviously advertising as well. It makes things more unique for your fan base. So your fan base always knows they're getting something. Like one of the things I remember is like Porter Robinson and Madeon, they would make like hidden messages in their like albums and websites and things like that. Making things for your fan base or people that find you be like, wow, why should I enjoy this? Oh, this guy has a puzzle, or this guy only has a certain amount, but it's really cool, but I really want it, but I have to be there on a certain time. If I'm not there, then I'm not part of the hype and things like that. You want to make people feel like they're part of the experience, and that I got to be there for that, or else what's the point? You don't want to make it feel like, oh, well, I could go see them again next week. That's also the same thing with DJs performing. It's like performing every weekend. If you're trying to make it outside of Utah or whatever state you're trying to, doing it every weekend, you got to realize that you're not going to have your fanboys come out every weekend, because they know they can always see you on another weekend. You want to make it scarce to a degree where when you play a show, you're going to have a lot of your fan base there, and they're going to tell more of their friends, because they're like, this guy only plays once every 3 months, or once every 6 months, or once every year. That's why a lot of artists only play 1 to 2 times in Utah or select states, because if not, then their fan base will be like, well, I can see them in 2 months. And it's like, okay, well, does that be project? So there's a couple things. I know you asked about specifically online, but online, it's just, there's so many different aspects to it. But I think, again, just like I mentioned with being authentically yourself, being authentically your project, figuring out what your project is and being authentically that. There are people I know that do, hey, I always do a purple filter or a perfect aesthetic over all the photos. Even though they look like the same photos everyone, I do a purple aesthetic, so their whole Instagram feed's purple. And I'm like, dude, that is dope. Like I could enjoy looking at that feed, and I would like that every day, as opposed to someone who's just like, hey, here's a selfie of me, or like making you have that edge, so people are like, why they should follow you if they were to come across your profile, or why they shouldn't. So that's hope that helps to a degree. I don't know.
It absolutely does. I think brand awareness, brand building is such a like an overused social media buzzword jargon type term. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes most people's eyes glaze over to hear that, because people hammer that. But I think you really did a service by kind of explaining what that means to build your brand, which is like, like it's not enough just to recreate something that somebody else did. It's like you have to figure out how you're going to put your own unique spin on it, and how you are going to make your content specific and authentic to you, right? Which is
Right.
a really tough thing to do if you don't know what you're about.
Right. Like for example, like Excision. Like, why do people like Excision? Oh, it's because his shows. Like, people go there for his shows. So that if they don't go, they know they're missing out. And it's all over social media, whether it's his team or people just posting about it. What his brand is. Like, I'm going there for a show, like the best dubstep show with amazing lasers, amazing visuals, and all that stuff. Like, I can tell you, he spends so much money on just amping up his production, and people see it and people notice it, and I think that's why he has such a huge fan base. It's take away the music per se, just from the production aspect, you're just like, that's like if you go to an Excision show, you're paying like for something. You're paying some good hard cash for that, and that's like being there in the moment, being there for the experience, being there for because that artist does something. Or who is it? I mean, James Hype. I know he's a big like DJ and also producer. He's really good at DJing, and people know that they're going there because he does some crazy things on the deck during the show. And it's like, are you going to see another DJ do that? Do a lot of DJs do that anymore? No, not really, or at least to his caliber. And you're like, I'm paying for that. There's so many examples of people who have those unique edges about them that it's like, I'm going there and I will pay money to go see that. And if I miss out, I am going to be bummed because I missed it. The amount of people I've heard that it's like, I missed this certain Excision tour and I'm never going to miss it again because my friend sent me videos, and I'm like, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for that brand, the branding of what they make. They made it to where it's like, you miss out, you're gonna kick the rocks with that kind of stuff. And it's obviously harder as a small artist, but I mean, you could start, like, I know there's artist friends of mine who are bigger now. They learn how to make their own visuals, and like Eptic, for example, he makes his own visuals, and people know whether they know that or not. He makes his own visuals, and that just adds to the unique aspect of like people when they learn that about him. I'm like, wait, he made his own visuals and he's also touring this. It's like, yeah, he doesn't pay someone, he makes them. It just gives you that unique edge of like, I am paying to see this artist and what they built as a career. So it's very important to make it who you are and what you want to encapsulate as an artist, both online and in person. So.
Beautifully put. Maclaine, it has been such a pleasure to pick your brain and get to know you a little bit better. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and like share this insider knowledge with me. Honestly, it has been a joy. I want to wrap up here with I just wanted to know what's coming up next for you. Where can people find you, and how can they get involved with the projects you're doing if you're looking for people to get involved?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, first off, thanks for having me on. It's I feel bad that I didn't respond to your original message. So yes, guys, I'm a piece of crap for doing that. There's a couple of underground projects I'm working on, so they'll be announced relatively soon. We're just kind of working on them. But I will be getting back in the show aspect because a lot of artists I know really want me to do the big scale events that I would do as like my own standalone project, and a lot of companies I work with want me to do that. So there'll be some shows coming up, which will probably be on my website, which I can provide you by Music Events. We do all my show stuff under there. We have some things in the music world that I'll be announcing relatively soon. But obviously, I still do work with like the movie theaters. So if there's places that people want me to look for accessibility, or there are things that they want me to help them make accessible, you can provide them with my contact info. It's never a bother. I'm here to help with more and more issues and keep solving more and more issues in societies and to the best of my abilities. So yeah, there's nothing too crazy I can share right now, but they will be announced relatively soon. We'll say that. But I appreciate you giving me the platform to be able to do that.
We'll end on that cryptic big things coming soon.
Big things coming soon. That's all DJs say. Big things coming soon, and it will be a year until you see them. No, I'm just kidding. But yes, I wish I could divulge more, but it would ruin all the work that my teams and stuff are doing. So I divulge. So I appreciate
it. Thanks again, Maclaine. This has been such a incredible experience. I wish you well. Hope you have a good one, and I'll be seeing you. Okay, boss.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Take it easy.
All right, bye.